How's everyone doing out there? Anyone have some wins they want to share? Something good happening?
We'll close next week on another.
Ooh, Ashley's,
Where am I
oh,
at?
there you go.
Oh,
You gotta
there,
get. Ashley's got a closing coming up that she's excited about. I know Herman has 2 listings coming up. Russell has his listing, hopefully, hopefully next week. Awesome. How about there in Zoom land? You guys have anything cool happening?
I have a listing appointment today for sale by owner.
Ooh, someone's been prospecting. Nice
Every
job.
day, every day.
Yeah. Is the market there, from what you can tell, does it seem the same as it is here? Shortage of inventory and everything?
Yes, pretty similar, but I think Michigan right now probably has it a little worse than here. It's so bad in Michigan, right? As far as
Yeah.
inventory. Whoa.
For
But-
sure. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about today, actually. Anyone else on Zoom have something they want to share? Something good going on? Personal, professional? Mike's about to kick off his scholarship. He gives away a scholarship, 2 actually every year. And so he's about to kick that off. So anyone who has a school aged student, keep that in mind. Yeah. All right, so today I want to talk about overcoming the challenges in real estate. You know, as we all know, like there are so many ups and downs in real estate, and I think it's important that everyone's kind of attuned to them, right? And we're identifying them and then coming up with strategies to basically get around them. So I made like a list of like common things, and obviously like you guys are welcome to share them if I miss one, because you know there's a lot, right? It's an exciting career because we get the flexibility of, you know, making our own schedule and having control of our lives, but there's a lot that comes with that. So as I was going through this, I'm like, oh, okay, where do I even start? So one of the things I think is being available. So everyone enters it 24/7 is your new schedule. And if they think, oh, well, it's so flexible, like it must be nice, you know, like I get that from my friends all the time. Oh, it must be nice to make your own schedule and do whatever you want. And you know, work whenever you feel like it. And they see me doing like social things, right? But what they don't see is like when you're working all weekend or you're working evenings, or, you know, I mean, our schedule is so unpredictable. You're fielding calls or texts like late into the night. You know, I try to be available to my clients, which is, you know, why I kind of had set that minimum standard at some point of working with clients that I love, because then if I get a text at 10 p.m. from a client, I'm not as like upset when I look at my phone, like, oh, I don't want to talk to her or whatever. I want to help them. And so, but that means that my schedule is kind of always open, and we're kind of at the mercy of clients. And I really realized that, yes, you in the back.
What you love when it says TGIF or happy.
Yeah.
Friday. I would say,
Right.
that means nothing.
Yeah, I never kick off this meeting with TGIF because that means nothing to real estate agents. Like someone will say that, and I'm sure you've seen the meme that's like TGIF, oh wait, I'm a real estate agent. And you know, so often like our weekends do end up filled up. And you know, sometimes when I'm in a busy season, I'll say, oh, I'm taking one of the weekend days off and try to really stockpile a whole day's worth of work in one day. But you know, it doesn't always work out like that, just depending. Getting clients. So this is huge. If you're a new real estate agent or even in the market that we're in, it's tough right now. And I don't want anyone on this to feel like it's just them, right? It is, the industry is really feeling squeezed. So I've gone to, I think, 3 different events within maybe the last 6 weeks. And every single one of them, I mean, top producers, big names were up there saying, it is tough out there. Eric Wright from Social House, I mean, flat out said like, it is so tough. Like, he's like, this is a very challenging real estate market. Christina Gennari, I think her last name is, she said that it's the first time in even like probably, she said about 4 years, that she feels like people have to go back to working at real estate. Because the last 4 years with great interest rates and a lot of people making moves because of that, there was this giant surge in the market. And a lot of the people that were going to make moves made them because it made sense at that time because of the interest rates. And she said, so you really have to work now in a different way than we've had to in a while. And then I've heard, like, you know, a couple of mortgage industry leaders saying it is tough. There are less people wanting to make a move. Like even Matt Ishbia, who's so positive all the time, he said, you know, a lot of people did the transactions they were going to do previously. So you really have to step up so that you can get your share of the market, which goes into the doing the things that other people aren't willing to do. Like I remember, you know, I was giving Shannon a hard time because she kept saying, I want a door knock, I want a door knock, I want a door knock. I got to wait till it's warm. And I'm like, no, I'm like, you have to do it now because the other agents aren't willing to do it. I said, you're a hockey mom. I said, bundle up, put some layers on and get out there. And she actually did it. And I was like, so proud of her. And it's like doing those things that are the above and beyond, you know, making the calls that are maybe uncomfortable, but just kind of forcing it through and just doing everything that you can to get your name out there and make those relational connections. The other thing is, when you have clients and you're excited, oh my gosh, now you have a buyer, you're excited, and then you get ghosted. I mean, who's had that happen to them before? Most people have. And it hurts your feelings, right? You're like, wait, we had a good connection. Like, I thought we had a thing. Like, you're excited. You know, are feeling good. Like, I have this client and I'm gonna take great care of them, and you have a great phone conversation, and then they gone. And a lot of us will panic, right? And I've panicked. I'm like, not saying I'm above that at all. And then I'm like, wait, what happened? What did I say? Did I say something that upset him? And honestly, this goes back to two things. One is follow up, because just because they've ghosted you now doesn't mean that the right time won't be eventually. So for some people, they get busy. And this is what I've learned over the years, right? They get busy, whatever, work kicks up and they don't have time, or some sort of circumstance changes. And they don't know you that well. So maybe they're embarrassed to share it with you. Maybe they had a cut in pay or a job loss or a tragedy. Well, they don't know you. So maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing that with you. You know, I had a girl and it ended up like after we kind of got to know each other, she said, yeah, I had to take a break because my father had passed away. And like, obviously we had only talked on the phone, but then as I got to know her as a client, once I followed up, and it was the right time for her, then as we got to know each other, then she said, yeah, she goes, I would have loved to have done this a year ago when the interest rates were better. However, you know, I had this tragedy I had to deal with. So, and I've had clients, you know, like sometimes on the negative side of things, you know, sometimes they'll have a significant other who has a family friend who's a realtor, has somebody that they feel more comfortable working with, a friend from high school, like something like that. And so sometimes you are going to lose people. I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that you're not, but until you find out by a follow-up what their decision is, just keep on following up. And I always say, like, follow up until they get a PPO and then stop, because you don't want to go to jail. And you know, sending texts, you know, I feel, to me, a text is usually the best for this. I mean, obviously calls depending on the person, but I honestly feel like text is a really good approach, only because you can say something like, you know, when you're available to call or something. You can accommodate their schedule basically. And you can say things like, hey, you know, I was just thinking about you. I didn't know if you still plan on purchasing a home in 2023, or I don't know if you ever ended up purchasing something in 2022, but if you are in the market to make a move, please let me know. I'm always here. And then I'll do that several times. And sometimes I'll do like, hey, I just want to I don't want to, you know, be a bother or anything like that. And And then usually I'll get a response from that, or like, I'm still sending you listings. I don't know if you want to keep receiving them or if you're even still looking. If you are, if you could just let me know, I'd really appreciate it. And sometimes you'll get a feedback. Yeah, I'm still looking. We're just not in a hurry right now. Or, we'd like to wait till fall or something. But putting those little bit more of a push text every once in a while, I encourage that. So, a couple of just like generic follow-up ones, and then maybe like every fourth or fifth one, push it a little bit harder. So, okay. And then, mistrustful clients. So this is a huge one. Clients are mistrusting of salespeople just by nature. They are, no one wants to get sold. Everyone thinks that, a salesperson has all these shady connotations. And so a lot of it is getting past that, right? It's rising beyond that and earning their trust, doing the things that you say that you're going to do for them. For me, a huge thing is, I'll say to them, like, once you say, yes, we want to be in this neighborhood, I'm going to work for you to find you a home in that neighborhood, whether it's mailing or door knocking or something, I'm going to find you a home. And them seeing that ambition and that, like, I'm going to take care of you kind of mentality really is trust building. And then, if they have questions about a property or need more information, following through with whatever you say that you're going to do is so incredibly huge. So another pitfall of real estate is inconsistent income. And this is a huge one because it is unpredictable what you're going to make. I mean, I've gone without a closing in a month, before, like when I first started. And it's hard, right? I mean, you're a real estate agent, we're paying fees every month. And there's, expenses to being a real estate agent, the MLS and, the board and having, our EXP fee for some of us. Like, there's things that you have every single month that are expenses being a real estate agent. And when you don't get a paycheck, it's kind of scary sometimes. And so when you do get a paycheck, we don't go to Disney World, right? We come up with something, that a way to use that money, right? Maybe we use a portion of it for marketing, obviously always a portion for taxes, but when you have those periods of time when you start doing well, make sure that you're putting money aside for when those months are slow, because I've definitely had it. I mean, right now I've had the lowest inventory for myself that I've ever had in, probably the last 5 years. And I know it's twofold. I was traveling a lot, so I wasn't doing the things that I know that I'm supposed to be doing, but it is the squeeze of the market. But I've always been really good. Like, I will save and save and save to make sure that if that dip in the market happens, that I don't enter it unprepared, right? Financially. And when it's hard, when you're doing great, you want to do all the things, but then you just have to be prepared just in case. Anyone have any thoughts, questions, input so far in any that I've covered?
It's scary when that happens, Amy. And I think a lot of that is being around people who are doing business and who are still producing. You have to be really careful about who you're surrounding yourself with, when, especially during those times when it gets a little scary and you're thinking, oh my gosh, right? I don't have any pending and I have bills coming up, and you could easily go down the slippery slope of believing that this is the end of your career, or this is like, you're never going to get a deal. So surrounding yourself with people who are doing big, great things really helps motivate you and keep you going in the right direction. And just talk to people, right? People like us that are going to, set your mind right. Because if you get in a bad place in your mind, you're not going to get the next deal. Like, you're just not, because you're already in the mindset of lack. So.
No, thank you, Lisa. That's
Yeah.
exactly true. Anyone else have anything? Yeah, so that was a huge one. I mean, to me, like, having inconsistent income is a scary thing. Being 100% commission based is a scary thing, and that's okay. but you have to do the tasks that it takes. You have to put the work in, and then you can keep that money consistent. Yes, you, Mike?
I think you always have to think forward in your business. You can't think of today.
Mhm.
Whether you're doing good, if you get comfortable, you're gonna dip. Whether
Mhm.
you're bad, you have to always know you're pushing towards next month or next quarter or the following,
Yeah,
the future of it. If you live in today and work in today, you'll never be, I don't know, not successful, but you'll never be progressive.
yeah, yeah. Mike said, to just be forward thinking, right? Don't focus on what's happening today, like be building for the future. So I think that's really a great point. The other thing, and this kind of all go together. So I've had rude clients, I've had demanding clients, and those are a challenge, right? When you have clients that, kind of talk down to you, or maybe are dismissive of you, or, it can be challenging, and it's hard as a real estate agent sometimes because you're going to get all of those different personality styles. I've had clients that were know-it-alls where, like, even if I said something that I know was completely accurate, and they're like, no, it's not like that. Or they would say something crazy and I'd be like, oh, that's not right. Like, and then you like have to decide whether or not you're biting your tongue or whether or not you're speaking out and saying, no, it's not really like that or whatever. And, cause I'll have clients like flat out say, well, the market's going to crash and maybe I'll just wait for that, those kind of things. I'm sure we all heard that, especially recently. And, it's like, you don't want to be argumentative, but your job as a real estate agent is to be informative, right? So on some level, you have to correct them, gently. And, just maybe, state some facts, and that's part of you like walk around knowledgeable, right? Does anyone know why it isn't predicted to crash? Can anyone answer that? Because that should be a script that inside and out. Anyone? Herman? Low inventory, absolutely. Mhm. Yeah, low inventory, that's huge. So, back in the day, they would build homes like spec homes, right? Where they were available and they were constantly building so people could move into them. Well, that stopped like quite a while ago when there was a little dip, and they didn't do that because it was a gamble, right? To build a, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 home and hope that it sells. That's a big gamble. That's a huge investment. Yeah, COVID was a huge part. And then, kind of as a byproduct of COVID was the lack of workers to do things. And so low inventory is one of the huge, huge things that will protect the real estate market from crashing. Anyone else have something else that they can share with clients?
A lot of people go off the seasons, like a lot of people think no one sells in the winter months, even though we know they do.
Mm-hmm.
But people like sit and say, oh, I'll wait till spring. It's just a false narrative that it's a better time to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Or when school's getting done, they want to buy and move over the summer months, so they're in their new school district come fall.
Mm-hmm.
So like right now, we're stepping into that part that we can tell them should be a good run once the listings are now hitting because of not only the weather, but because of the school shift.
Yeah. Seasonal changes and the school district changes that happen over the summer. Those are both huge. So right now is a great time because of that, of course. And that kind of protects the market too. We always say in real estate, there's never really a good or a bad. There's never really a bad time to put your home on the market. And I stand by that because obviously in the winter, inventory is low, competition's lower, and the buyers that are searching in the winter are in high demand. But now we're in the spring market. And as we know, that's usually the peak time for people to put things on the market. So, following up and maybe calling some of those old expireds that maybe expired September, October, they took it off the market for the cold season. That would be pro tip, a good time to call those expireds. Ashley, do you have something
Yeah,
else?
one thing I like just in the last year that I've learned, because with housing, like people overbidding, it's like my big thing is when people are buyers and they're like, well, interest rates are so high, but then I come back and say, yeah, but also 9 months ago, people were paying $20,000, $25,000 over asking price. So yeah, your interest rate might be higher, but you're also getting the house at more of a fair price, and interest rates, you can obviously change over time, whereas like once you buy a home, you're locked in at that price.
Yeah, correct. I mean, the hard part is it seems like it's transitioning back into that overbidding thing and appraisal guarantees, and that short window that we had of that couple months, it was, nice because you could say that very easily. Oh, well, interest rates are higher, but you're not paying those astronomical over appraised prices. You're not paying 20K over or something like that. So, it's different, right? But, and I always say like to my clients, if you're paying, even if they are paying over appraised price, if it's a house that they're moving into, that's nice. So I was, helping a client recently, and it was probably, they were gonna have to put like a $15,000 appraisal guarantee. But I said, but if you think about it this way, I'm like, if you moved into a house that you didn't like as much and you had to put $15,000 into it, like, is that really any different? I mean, honestly, to get the house that they want. I was actually just talking to Danny about it this week, and it kind of circles back around to that, the building of trust, right? I mean, you want your clients to trust you. So the whole time when you're out there showing houses, be preparing them in the market, even if it's not a house that they're necessarily interested in, right? Like if it's a nice house, wow, yeah, this one will probably, this one could definitely end up with multiple offers. I just kind of reminding them that it's still a competitive market, so that when it is the right time and they find that right house, you can go all in to get it for them, and they'll be aligned with you on that. So the other thing is, the mortgage industry really changed after that crash. Lending procedures, policies, like everything tightened up. And that's the other reason why I don't see it ever happening with that crash that we had before. Because they were just lending kind of absentmindedly to whoever, for, people that were not qualified. Like I remember at the time, like I was not making very good money at all. And we did like an 80-20 mortgage. And it was like, it's so that we could qualify basically to purchase a house that we couldn't afford. Like now that I look back, that's exactly what it was. And, so it's, a lot of bad lending protocols back then too. So I think that's the other thing that will protect us, going forward. As a real estate agent, sometimes we get super bogged down by emails, paperwork, things that take us off of our money-making activities. And sometimes it can even be, and I'm all about training, of course, training is my passion, but sometimes we just fill our calendar with too many things where we can't do the things that are actually income generating. At some point, you may have to pump the brakes and say, okay, I've gotten a lot of training. Now I need to start applying those things and we've talked about it before, how you take things from training, you learn, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. That's such a great idea. And then it stays in your notebook, or it stays in, the worksheet that they give you at the training. And then you have these great ideas, but if they're in this closed notebook that you never open, or if they're in the notes of your phone, but you never go back and actually apply something that you take from those trainings are actually doing a disservice to you. They're just eating up time that you could be prospecting, or you could be door knocking, or you could be making some connections. And so think about that, if, I'm all about training and gaining knowledge, but pay attention to what you're doing. If you're going to things and not applying, then maybe that's not where you need to be, right? Maybe you need to redirect how you're spending your time so that you are building your business. And instead of, sitting in a classroom and learning, which I know sounds terrible, but I hope you get my message on that. Unrealistic expectations. So a lot of our buyers, it's kind of twofold. So part of it is our buyers, right? And sellers, right? We need to be pros at setting expectations going in all the way through, right? They need to know how the process is going to go beginning to end. And again, if they're brand new, or if they have sold 5-10 different houses, you need to educate them so that their expectations are leveled. And so they understand where the market is currently, and so that they know what to expect. So that, and again, this goes back to that trust building, right? So if we're taking the time to educate them on every step of the process, they're going to trust us. They're going to say, wow, he's really knowledgeable. She knows what she's talking about. She gets it. And you know, you want to bring your value to them, what your role is, right? So my role is to help you find a great solid home that's a good investment and that's as close as possible to what you are looking for. Stacy, just give me a thumbs up. So you want to be as sorry, it just threw me off for a second. But you want to make sure that their expectations are leveled, right? So if they have $120,000 budget and they think they're going to move into something that's move-in ready, is that really realistic? Or even if they're looking at a higher price point and they're looking in a particular neighborhood that's priced high, it doesn't, you want to be realistic. It's like, I always think of like Del Webb, those sell at a premium, right? So if I get a client that wants to move in there, there's also a high demand. There's not neighborhoods like that. It's 55 and up. It's like a resort community, essentially. Like, it's like, I always like joke, like it's like living on a cruise ship, right? They have like activities and all kinds of things, very exclusive. And there's standalone condos, detached condos. So there's tons of things that make it desirable, but it makes it desirable to a lot of people. And a lot of times, because they're higher price points, I get clients that think, oh, well, you know, I'm spending this much, so I'll have no problem getting it. And it's not always like that. So the more things that you can get out of the way and I guess be proactive on, the better, right? Because then you don't have people thinking, oh, you know, I'm spending $140,000 and I'm gonna get this amazing house. Well, maybe not, but maybe. Where are we looking though? You know, figure out the neighborhood that you're looking in. And the other thing, unrealistic expectations. So that's like buyers and sellers, but being a real estate agent, right? So a lot of people enter it thinking, wow, like, I mean, and I'll be like, for me, I have tons of friends that are like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about like getting my real estate license. Like you've been able to do this, this, and this, like thinking, oh God, it's so easy. But it really isn't, right? I mean, I put work in all the time, and not for the last 6 weeks, just being honest, but in the middle I have, but I have to work hard for it. It doesn't just come to me. Like I do work hard for it. I mean, do I get a lot of referrals now? Yes. But if I'm building new business, which I always want to be doing, it's hard work. It's hard, diligent work. And the money can be there, right? We have this amazing job where we can make infinite income, but you have to put the work behind it. And so having unrealistic expectations that, oh, I became a realtor and now my friends and family are just going to call me and use me. It's not true. I've had cousins that have used other people and an uncle that used somebody else. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not putting myself out there to the people that I should be. I had a friend use somebody else, like, and it hurts. It's a punch in the stomach. It feels terrible, and you would assume that those people would use you, you know, a former coworker, and it doesn't always work that way. So unless you're putting yourself out there, presenting yourself as a professional, doing the steps that it takes to convince people, hey, not only am I a real estate agent, but I'm good at what I'm doing. I care about you and I want what's best for you. I'm knowledgeable and I'm a professional. Convincing them of all those things is important. And not that you have to give them a speech about it, but in your actions and your social media and your interactions, you have to make sure that you're connecting with them. Part of that is calling your sphere. You know, I'll say that over and over and over. You have to stay connected to the people that already know, like, and trust you. It's huge. Any thoughts, feedback, questions, and any of that? Yeah, absolutely. Is our job easy? Like, I mean, people think our job is easy for sure. Mike said it straight on. And is it easy? I mean, some parts of it, sure. And sometimes you'll have a file that almost seems like too good to be true. You know, I've had, you know, a cash buyer look at one house and buy it. and it was closed in 2 weeks. And I'm like, wow, that is easy, right? And then I've had files that have drug on for 3 months where, I mean, Mike knows he's, yeah, a year. Yeah. When things are just, you can't get it through, or there's, a probate issue, or there's, 2 buyers that fall through like at the last minute. I've seen a lot through the years of being in real estate. So yeah, our job is easy sometimes, but I would say the greater majority is it's more of a challenge, and every file has, we see like 6 personalities: buyer, seller, maybe their husband or wife is a totally different personality than both real estate agents. And it's probably beyond that, right? Then you get mortgage and title and all these people that have opinions and a vested interest in the contract. So, it's definitely, to me, not an easy job. I think it's difficult, psychologically all the way around in a lot of ways. Sometimes we have to be parents to clients. This is an interesting one. So if a client is a client is a first-time home buyer, you have to be their parent. I've had clients who bring their parents along, which is great, but sometimes they have clients that are unrepresented, right? That are like, don't have someone, like they literally have no concept. Like they're like, thought I should buy a house and then apply for a mortgage and attempt to buy a house. And those people who have no idea, you almost have to parent them. And I know some of you are young, but you have to guide them and put them in the right direction and think of their best interests all the way through. Making sure that they understand the process, but also that just because they're approved for 200,000, maybe they don't need to spend 200,000. Especially with those, make sure that you have the lender run their numbers so they can see what it looks like when they have taxes and insurance and their payment, what that is going to look like monthly for them, so that they know and make sure that it makes sense to them. And it's hard because, of course we always want the sale, but more importantly, we want the people happy. We don't want them house poor in 2 months. I've been house poor before, and it is terrible. It's terrible when your mortgage is like this looming payment that, you're like, oh gosh, I gotta pay that payment, and it's just sitting there, and it can be so stressful, because you still have to buy groceries, and you still have utilities, and you still have car payments and things like that. And so, for first-time home buyers, I'm always like making sure that they get a good perspective, or a good idea of what their payments are going to be, as well as make sure first-time home buyers get a home inspection. It's so huge. And I know, like, we were in that market where it just wasn't really a thing, but a first-time home buyer needs to know how to take care of the home they're purchasing. They need to know what to look for. They need to know if there's a foundation issue or there's mold in the attic. Anyone really needs to know that, but first-time home buyers, when they don't even have any maintenance knowledge whatsoever, if I have a first-time home buyer, I pair them with an inspector who's going to educate them along the way, who's going to say, hey, just so you know, you're going to want to change your furnace filter. I say, bring a notebook with you. You're going to want to change your furnace filter every blah, blah, blah. You're going to want to make sure that you caulk this every year. You're going to want to make sure that you keep this deck sealed, or whatever it is, so that they're taking notes and they have a knowledge, because they don't know. I was that homeowner before, and I was first-time home buyer. I was 22 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And I had parents, but they weren't excited that I was buying a house. They were like, you're buying a house? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you're not even done with college yet. I'm like, I feel like I should buy a house. And so I decided to do that, and they ended up helping me like after the fact, but like looking at the house, I didn't know what to look for. And when I did the inspection, I did that. I did exactly that. I took notes on how to maintain a property. And so, cleaning out gutters and like just all of those little things that you just don't know if you've never owned a home. So be a parent to your first-time home buyers, both in the money that they spend and making sure, I always say, like, I want to get you the best house I can. That's a solid investment at the best price that we can get. So, Yes, so emails and paperwork, that was one of the things. So like when it gets busy, like if you start doing a lot of transactions, really come up with systems, right? So come up with systems, come up with checklists, come up with ways to manage it. If it gets overwhelming, hire a transaction company, like, it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of details and there's a lot of paperwork and you don't want to miss things along the way. Or sometimes even if you're new and you don't know what you're doing, maybe a transaction company is worth it to you guys too. Who gets unmotivated clients? Where they're like, yeah, like I'd like to move, but and it's frustrating. I feel like that unmotivated clients and picky clients, those are like two of my nemesis. I hate you wherever you are. No, I'm just kidding. But but seriously, it is frustrating to work with unmotivated clients that you might send properties to and they're like, and it's tough. And you're gonna get people like that. And I always just encourage focus on the ones that are motivated, right? Or establish what the unmotivated clients motivation is, like dig a little bit deeper maybe so that you can kind of hit that point and circle back to it. Like I have a guy that's living with his parents right now. Well, he's not, it's just him and his dad. Well, he's not super motivated, right? Like he'd like to move. He doesn't like living with his dad. And I know that. And so I'll bring that up. I'm like, oh, if I'm showing him a house, I'm like, so how's it going with your dad? Cause I know, like, he's a grown man. He needs to get out of that house and he knows he does. So I'll just kind of circle around, not pushing too hard, but at least like touching on the point where I know he's not getting along with them. I know that at some point he's going to move out. So like those little things. And picky buyers, that's a challenge. Danny said he was showing somebody for 6 months the other day. It's a long time, and so when they find that right house, I mean, I told them like, you got to pull out all the steps, they find a house that they're willing to make an offer on, pull that pain point out, say, I mean, we've been looking for 6 months and this is the first house you've seen that you've loved. And this is a 10 for you. This checks all the boxes you said you wanted. And I want to get you this house. I know you'll be happy here. This is the school district you wanted. This is, it's got those huge bedrooms, like, because we're learning, right? I always tell you guys, learn along the way of what's important to them. Hit those important points when you're writing an offer. You have to circle back to those important points. This is a neighborhood you wanted. This is, 10 minutes from work, or, has that amazing yard that you said that was important to you for your dog. Whatever, go back to those, the positives that you've noticed along the way, especially when you're putting that offer in for that picky client. That's huge because then you'll get them excited, right? And I want to get you this house, and then you start talking numbers, right? And you have to get them up. And some of those picky people I find are also the cheapest. Where you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to be picky and cheap. You can't be both. They're like, oh, I don't want to do an appraisal guarantee. I don't want to pay over what it's worth or whatever. But if you're in the house that you wanted and the neighborhood that you wanted and all that, and most people, they think that they're going to live in a house forever. I mean, I'll say like, maybe 80% of my clients think this is long-term. This is where we're staying. Is that the case? Not always. Sometimes it's, 5 to 7 years, but if someone plans on being there a long term and you really break down the numbers, and we always say like, break down the numbers to the ridiculous. And so they're paying a $10,000 appraisal guarantee. In a 30-year mortgage, you divide that out by 30 years, and then you divide that out by, 52 weeks, and you divide that out by 365 days. And to be in the house that you love with that $10,000 appraisal guarantee is going to cost you 2 cents a day. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you want to be in the house that you love for an extra 2 cents a day, or whatever, like come up with that number and take it all the way down to that like ridiculous amount where who would say no to that, to be in the house that they want, the neighborhood they want, the perfect house that they found. So, if you have that client that's either being, picky or cheap or whatever, I feel like that's a good way to approach it. Yes, Michael.
When you talk about offering on a house, they'll say, oh, I'm comfortable with 150, but 155 is way too high. If that's the house that they really want, but to them or $10,000 more, it's like they think that up front. But if you break that down, if it's only if it's 10,000, you think 160 will get the house, it's listed at 150. They think it's too big, they don't want to do that, but if you break it down, it's like, $35 a month
Mhm.
more. Even
Yeah.
though it's $10,000 on the
Yes.
offer price, but
Yes.
the monthly payment is so minimal to have a better chance. That has to be explained to them a lot of times.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So, prices of the property itself, like $10,000 seems like a lot on paper. $20,000 seems like a lot on paper. But if it's $20,000, only $70 a month, like that's really not that much if it's all of those perfect things, right? If you're move-in ready. Yeah, a family dinner. Seriously, that's how much it costs minimum every time we go out to dinner. Yeah, $70, one dinner a month. Is that worth, being in the perfect house for you? Ashley?
I think that, I think the big thing about the appraisal guarantee is, I think a lot of people just don't have the funds for that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I think that's where it's a struggle, because it's like, I think a lot of them would love to do that. And I don't think it's even like the mortgage amount, it sucks to have to like front that $10,000 or $15,000. And that's where a lot of people probably do struggle, and maybe they would, but if they haven't.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then they obviously have their down payment, and then you add on cost of repairs and stuff.
Yeah, she was talking about like some people actually can't financially afford to do appraisal guarantees. And that's true. I've had people that weren't in the position to do that, and it does make it challenging, especially if we're in a very competitive market.
Where all that money come from a year and a half ago?
I know, right? People had so much money a year and a half ago. I'm like, when people were rolling out with cash, I'm like, dude, I just lost to 210 cash. Like, what? Like, what kind of bank accounts these people have? So, another challenge in real estate is our burden, or our, I don't know how to say it. I don't know quite the right word, but of relying on others, right? So when we're in a real estate transaction, it's not just us, right? We are relying on our clients to do the things that they're supposed to do, and not do the things they're not supposed to do, like, buying a motorcycle or furniture, on a credit card. We're relying on our buyers to do the right thing. We're relying on our sellers to bring the home up to code, to make the call to the city, to get the final water bill. We're relying on the title company to make sure there's no liens. We're relying on the mortgage company to make sure it's a smooth process, right? Because we could knock it out of the freaking park. We could be the best realtor in the world. We find the great house. We negotiate the crap out of it. We're going to negotiate the private home inspection, give them every repair that they, is important to them. And then if they have a bad process during the mortgage, guess what they're going to remember? I've had several people at closing tables like this at me, like just pissed off. And it sucks. It is so terrible. Lenders that gave them absolutely wrong number of what they need out of pocket. They took too long. They overpromised and underdelivered, whatever it is. Like, I've seen it all. And no, I have not seen it all. I should never say that in real estate, but it sucks because it reflects on you regardless, especially if it's someone you refer them to. But even if it was their own lender that you didn't know, like people walk in with some Quicken and they're like, oh my God, I got tossed around from person to person. And then this happened and this happened. And these numbers changed 5 different times and whatever. And you get people that are like mad at you because of this. And that sucks. Or title company, if they don't catch something and all of a sudden, they're like, oh, well, we need this payoff. And then you're like, wait, what? And there's some loopholes and red tape and stuff that you have to jump through to get the payoff. Like, at the last minute, it can throw everything off. And relying on the other agent to do what they say that they're going to do, to convey a good message to their client. Like, I know that if I talk to a listing of mine about an appraisal, I have a really amazing approach. If an appraisal comes in low, I know that I can handle it and I can probably talk them into whatever way they need to go. Not every agent has that skill set. So if the listing agent on the other side has no idea what to say or they may be like, oh, it came in low, and like, just, end of the world kind of thing, where their client might just be okay with it. I just kind of tell my clients matter of factly, so just want to let you know, the appraisal came in at blah, 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 blah. And then just see how they react. Cause sometimes they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I thought it seemed kind of high when when they offered that price or something. Sometimes they're totally fine with it and you're kind of shocked, and then other times, it's a different battle, but that's okay. But yeah, having to rely on others is such a huge thing. And so, keeping that in mind of who, you align with, title and mortgage and everything in between, really. Some are within our control and some are not. So just keep that in mind. And that's why I always say, never, ever, ever, ever go hands off. Never, once it's pending, go hands off on your transaction. Like, we've done our job, obviously, and we don't really have to do anything. Maybe once it's under contract and we get through the private home inspection, really our hands are, not are washed of the workload, I'll just say, for the most part. And so, but I'll always stay in constant contact with my clients, giving them updates or just touching base with them or whatever, so that they have a good rapport with me till the end. And that way, if something does flare up with the mortgage, I can be empathetic with them. I can be angry with them, like alongside them, not at them, or, I can start attacking the lender or something. So just stay in contact all the time. The last one is, and this is I feel like a hot topic and an important one, and one that you hear me talk about all the time, is prospecting. As an agent, if you're prospecting, and anyone here, has anyone prospected before and not got a valid lead, not got someone viable, not got a good prospect out of it? And it sucks because prospecting is hard work. It's repetitive phone calls. It's, being told no a lot of rejection. Jeff Glover, he had a quote. He was like, I don't mind. I never minded getting hung up on or anything. He goes, he used to say, the more rejection I take, the more money I make. And he said it just made him stronger, like to where it didn't even faze him. He said he made so many calls and got so many different responses. He said that it didn't even faze him anymore. Like, if someone was rude, he was just like, okay, next. Like, he just got this super tough skin when it came to prospecting, where he was just like, okay, say whatever you want. I'm moving on to the next, moving on to the next, moving on to the next, and I think that's huge. It's frustrating. Not every time you prospect is something going to come into fruition. I've been noticing lately, I'm not making a ton of traction when I'm prospecting, and that's okay. Sometimes it's, one of the ladies I talked to this week, she was like, oh, no, honey, we're not moving now. She goes, probably in 3 years. I go, oh, okay, Donna. Well, is it okay if I follow up with you before then and we stay in touch? And she's like, oh, yeah, of course. That's 3 years away, but I know that I have to stay in touch with her, because at some point I want her business. And, I've had people, oh, we're going to wait until fall. We're going to wait until this, I might just be sphere building sometimes. You may not always get an appointment or a contract out of it, but sometimes you're just building your sphere, and that's okay too. People to follow up with. I had this one guy and he was like, you know what, I'm not. And I said, oh, well, do you know of any neighbors that are thinking about moving? No, he said, but you know what, if you want to send me your information, I'll be happy to talk to people on your behalf, just from a phone call. And he's like, I sent him my card and he's like, oh, thanks. And he goes, if you get a chance, maybe drop some in an envelope and send them too. And I'll hand them out to people if I run into them. Okay, so now I have someone prospecting on my behalf. So, I didn't get an appointment, but there's little things that come, I feel like, that are good out of it. So, yeah.
How do you go about, if you know someone's best interest is to make a move, because they want to say get their kid into a new school district? How do you go about not rushing them, but kind of leading them towards, their motivation, right?
Well, I think, once you know what their motivation is, I do feel like circling around to that. So just like my guy who needs to move out of his dad's house, hey, Carrie, I know you want to get into the Southgate School District. So, I've been calling, I'm going to call around to see if I can find a good home that's good fit for you or something like that. Make her realize that you're going to be doing work on behalf or sending her those listings and saying, hey, this one's in the district or this one, you know what I mean? Like keeping that in the front of our mind. Like, I just saw this one and it's in that school district that you want. I think is probably the best tactic for that. Obviously, you can't necessarily create urgency. To me, the urgency is getting there, you know, by August or whatever. Just say, you know, because it takes 30 days to close a mortgage. I mean, this is again, setting expectations. Takes 30 days to close a mortgage. And then sometimes people will need 30 to 45 days occupancy after closing. So 2.5 months, you know, is something that you'll want to think about sooner rather than later. Anyone else have anything, or maybe like something that they're like, oh, this is a challenge, or maybe one that I forgot?
Hey, Amy, how you doing?
Well, good morning.
How you doing? Good morning. So
Hi.
I do have a question. And this is in regards to my deal in Grand Rapids. We
Sure.
did offer 55 days occupancy, but I'm trying to find a better way because I spoke to my clients and how they can at least put something in escrow just in case if it damage anything in the home or things go bad, you know, while they're still staying there. So I know we didn't put that in the purchase agreement, but is there any other form of way to get that over to them to agree on putting something on escrow for that?
So at this point, you can definitely ask, okay? You can say, hey, my clients have been to the other agent. Hey, my clients have really been thinking about this. And we'd really like to do some sort of a security escrow for the occupancy period that your clients will have. Do you think your sellers would be okay with that? Like, again, approach things, you know, like you're representing your buyers. So yeah, you're saying, you know, my buyers have just been really thinking about this. It would be okay if we do like a $2,000 security deposit held at closing, or a security escrow held at closing, just while they're with the free occupancy after the fact. You know, if your sellers would be okay with that, you know, whatever. Just approach it humbly and see. They may say no. You know, we were talking about security deposits and, you know, those escrows the other day at UWM. I was talking to Colton, and he has a couple and they're divorcing, and they're like, okay, well, the occupancy was up on, I think he said Thursday. And she's like, yeah, they're not going to be out until Sunday or Monday. And he's like, wait, but what? Like, you know, my buyers are expecting keys, right? So he does have an escrow though. He has $2,500. So, I mean, they had already ordered a final water reading for Thursday. DTE was going to get switched over on Thursday. Like, everything was in place. And so that's the protection. And I've had seamless transactions. And then when the escrow, if an escrow isn't held, it can be scary sometimes, because what leverage do you have to get people out otherwise? So were you competing on that offer, Wally?
What'd you say?
Were you competing on that offer that you wrote?
Yeah. I mean, that's what the agent told us, that there were some other offers available or already in hands, that in order for us to go ahead, you know, we have to do more. You know, they already said they got a 50 days occupancy already, and that's why we went 55 days, you know.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's hard, right? Because if you're competing, you know, you don't want yours to be the one with the security deposit and the other one's not to have it. But I think you can at least ask retroactively just to see what they say. But
Okay.
I highly recommend a security deposit. went in one time and there was like a full house full of like junky furniture. And I was like, and we ended up keeping the entire deposit. So that they could rent a dumpster to get it out. So, anyone else have anything or input, questions? Yeah, of course.
Would I be part of your, purchase or your offer?
That's what we just said. It depends on
Yeah.
if you're competing or not.
Yeah.
You don't want that to be the reason they don't choose you because you're asking for that.
But then I feel like, yeah, I guess that could lose your offer, but then it's like, if you don't do that, and then you're stuck in the situations, like, isn't it almost better to protect the buyer? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's the hard thing when and the market kind of set us up in a bad way. We're like, you're afraid to ask for a private home inspection. You're afraid to ask for a security deposit. You're afraid. I know. And then you get in that's why I hated that market, because I really didn't feel like it could always protect my buyers, and it makes it really difficult. So,
Yeah, when people are waiting private home inspections and that, you're like,
yeah,
just to get a deal done.
I know, it's
Almost
scary.
like you have a-
But you still, once you're in contract, you should always have the conversation.
Right, that's what I'm saying. like,
Because the sellers technically are confident that they're not gonna have to worry about it. So a lot of times they'd be okay with, because they're gonna get it back, you know what I mean? So it isn't like you're taking money from them, it's just,
They should call an escrow.
yeah, so unless they're pretty confident they're not gonna have an issue, they shouldn't.
That's what I'm
Most times
saying.
they shouldn't disagree with it, they should be
Yeah.
okay with it.
Right, and that's the thing, like, if I was selling my house and somebody asked it just to feel buyer, like, knowing I'd get that money back, I'm not gonna trash the house, of course you would
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
But I
But-
guess that would be a red flag if they were like, well, no, you know what I mean, like, you never know, like,
I really push them, on houses where there's like so much stuff. We're talking about security escrows, where there's so much stuff in it, like a hoarder house kind of thing. Or it's a divorce situation. A lot of times I want one in that situation, so you don't get one party. Or if it's someone where it seems like maybe they can't afford their house, like I had a couple that were like short sales that I was like, oh, this looks bad. A lot of times though, it really is the house where they have like so much stuff in it, because people get pissed when there's stuff in it.
is that ultimately like the final walkthrough though, like, at that point, if there was damage done,
Mhm.
enough to where you would be like, screw this, you could walk. Like, you don't-
Yeah.
Now that there's occupancy, you've already closed.
Yeah,
And if there's no money being held, you can't go, oh, look what we found, we need money, they'll tell you to kick rock.
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
And I've gone through, the 2 walkthroughs, one at closing and then one before they take occupancy too. They have the right to do that. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
At that point, it doesn't matter.
Like, I forgot about that, 'cause you had already closed, that's what we like.
You can't go, okay, you screwed up the house, we don't want it, you closed 55 days ago, he would close.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't come back on any of that,
Yeah, I guess it's.
the
I didn't
closing's
think about that.
done.
Yeah.
But normally, this listing agent they'll entertain it and.
Right, maybe
8.5
something.
times out of 10,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
But if you're not competing, you wanna have that conversation up
Right,
front,
right.
you'd like to include it right in the PA.
Sure,
yeah.
and you would just do like in that remark section, like under the notes, like.
I usually
um,
put it on a separate
Yeah,
addendum.
you do a supplement.
Yeah.
That's another.
Like $1,500 security
Mhm.
deposit to be held,
And release to seller upon key exchange.
okay.
All right. Anyone have anything else? All right. I hope you guys have a great Good Friday. And
This is
do you think-
amazing, Amy.
What?
Such a
What'd you-
great topic. Thank you so much, Amy. Really good topic.
Oh, of
Very
course. All right. Well, if you guys need anything or have any questions, always feel free to reach out, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.